What's up everyone? Today we're ranking every melee weapon in No More Room in Hell 2 Early Access Edition. So this isn't a stat sheet ranking, it's my personal tier list after spending plenty of time with every weapon in the game. You know, I'm looking at overall effectiveness, taking into account damage, swing speed, stamina, efficiency, reach, crowd control, and how reliable each weapon is throughout an entire run. So before we get started, this is just my opinion. So if your favorite weapon ends up lower than you'd like, let me know where you'd rank it down in the comments. So we'll begin in the D tier, and the first weapon that's going into the D tier is the small pipe. It's the weapon everyone knows because it's what you spawn with, but it quickly shows its limitations. It takes too many hits to consistently put zombies down. The crowd control isn't great. And once you find almost any other weapon, there's really no reason to keep it. I mean, it's fine for surviving the first few minutes, but that's really about it. You know, it's definitely a weapon you want to switch out once you find something else. Tire iron. All right, yeah, so it's slightly faster than the small pipe, but the shorter reach means you're putting yourself in danger more often. It feels like a little smoother to use, but not enough to justify like hanging on to it. It's definitely another weapon that is better than the small pipe, but you definitely still want to switch it out for other weapons. Okay, the wrench lands here for pretty much the same reason. It's dependable enough if you have nothing else, but there's nothing about it that really stands out. You know, average damage, average speed, average reach, it just gets outclassed by better options. So it's pretty much a useless weapon in my opinion, but if you let's say your game glitches and, you know, you need something in your hand, then I would definitely pick up a wrench for that reason. But outside of that, you're better off just having the small pipe than the mallet. So yeah, it has decent stopping power, but the slow swing speed and limited reach makes it hard to justify over almost any other blunt weapon. It feels chunky in tight situations, and every missed swing leaves you vulnerable. So it'll get the job done early on, but I'm swapping it out the moment I find something better. Out of all the weapons in the D tier, I would say the best weapon in the D tier, in my personal opinion, would be the tire iron. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the C tier, and this is actually quite controversial here because I was actually thinking of putting this in the D tier, but then there was a reason why. I have a reasoning why I didn't do it. So the weapon that I'm putting in the C tier that I actually wanted to put in the D tier was the kitchen knife. And the reason why I didn't put this in the D tier is that the kitchen knife is incredibly fast. I think it's one of the fastest weapons in the game. And the problem with it is not necessarily its speed. It's just everything else. Like the reach is tiny, the damage is underwhelming, and you have to get super close to zombies, which just basically gives you all types of trouble, right? You're gonna get infected eventually with that weapon. I would think it's like it's more of a fun weapon to like mess around with, but I wouldn't trust it during a difficult run. So that's why I would put it in the C tier. I think its speed is what makes it very, in my opinion, that makes it better than like any other weapon inside the in the D tier for sure. The red bar. So this is basically the entry-level two-handed weapon, in my opinion. So you get a bit more reach, which is better damage than the starter weapons, but it still doesn't hit hard enough to justify the slower swings and extra stamina costs. It's usable, but only until something better comes along. So yeah, like I said before, it's definitely a great two-handed weapon. So it's definitely better than all the other weapons that are one-handed. But in terms of a two-handed weapon, it's probably the weakest weapon in my opinion when it comes to a two-handed weapon. If you could find a better two-handed weapon, you should definitely switch it off. T-Junction pipe. It's definitely an upgrade over this, a smaller one-handed weapon, but compared to stronger two-handed options, it just doesn't have enough impact. For those two weapons, the red bar and the T-Junction pipe, those two-handed weapons are so underwhelming in terms of like two-handed weapons. It's actually quite saddening, but you need variety obviously. But this is why I would put in the C tier. They're great two-handed weapons to switch off with if you have the small pipe, but in terms of two-handed weapons, they're not the strongest weapons and the best weapon. The giant wrench. So this weapon actually quite surprised me about how underwhelming it was. I expected it to be a lot better, but let me just find it here first and put it in there. So yeah, the giant wrench was kind of surprising to me because I thought it would be like when I saw it, I picked it up. I was like, oh, looks like a beast of a weapon. But it's solid, it's dependable, and it's definitely usable. but it doesn't excel in like any one area. It's one of like those weapons that gets the job done without ever feeling amazing. And I was surprised about how underwhelming it was, right? It was just a usable weapon that was great, but amazing, you know? So that kind of sucked. So in the B tier, I would put first in the B tier, I would actually put the claw hammer. I would say this about the claw hammer, which is, it's a really good weapon. It's really good. It's definitely better than all the other weapons that are shown on this list. So, you know, the weapon, the claw hammer punches, you know, above its size. It swings quickly. It has respectable damage. It feels much more responsive than most early game blunt weapons. Dominate late game encounters. You know, it's a reliable enough that I'm happy to carry it until I find a top tier weapon, but it's not a weapon that I would say is the best weapon in the game, right? It's a very dependable weapon. I can hold on to it if in terms of like having a one-handed weapon, but it's not something that I would say is the best weapon in the game. The Cleaver. So this is where, you know, sharp weapons, you know, they start becoming really fun in my opinion. So it deals solid damage. It's great at removing limbs, making it much easier to control groups before they overwhelm you. And it's I wouldn't say it's an elite weapon, but it's definitely a reliable, like, sharp weapon, because for a lot of the sharp weapons in this game, they're not quite reliable in terms of use, but the Cleaver is definitely one of those reliable sharp weapons. So if you find one of these, definitely use them for sure. The hand axe. So this is, I would say, pretty much the same thing for, you know, the Cleaver. It's probably a lot more balanced than the Cleaver. You know, it's also a sharp weapon. It's definitely one of the most balanced weapons in the game. It hits hard, swings reasonably fast, and it doesn't punish you nearly as much as like some of those like the larger two-handed weapons, right? Especially with like the red bar or the T-Junction pipe and the giant wrench. In terms of like a one-handed weapon, the hand axe is really, really great. And you know, yeah, if I find one early, I'm usually keeping it like until the end of the game, because I think it's a really standout weapon. In terms of a sharp weapon, it's very standout. So I really like that. Okay. So moving on, we have one last one that I would actually put in the B tier, and the shovel. This is a weapon that feels better the more you use it. You know, it has solid reach, good damage, and enough crowd control to handle multiple zombies without feeling completely helpless. The main thing holding it back is the slower swing speed and heavier stamina cost compared to the faster, more efficient weapons. It's not quite on the level of, you know, the fire axe or baseball bat, but it's a reliable choice that can carry you through a large portion of the run, you know, unless you find something better. But in terms of a two-handed weapon, I think the shovel is a great two-handed weapon that you can find and you can use for a very long time if you can't find a top tier weapon, in my opinion.